Hi there, my name is Grant Patterson. I'm the author of 9 published books, including the Will Bryant series. That's what we're talking about here today, the second book in that series called Back in Slowly. We're in March 2020, nearing the end of the month, in the middle of the great coronavirus pandemic. This is an airport flight path overhead. You'd never know it though, it's so quiet. And there's not much else to do except write and publicize my books. I'm an independently published author. I have a website, the details of which you'll see below. And I've basically got to do a lot of the work myself, aided by my wife, who is our camera person. So here I am talking about my books and encouraging you to read them. So we're talking about Back in Slowly today. Back in Slowly is the sequel to Southern Cross, the first in the Will Bryant Thrillers series. And it mostly takes place in Rio de Janeiro on the eve of the 2016 Olympics. When we meet Will Bryant again after the events of Southern Cross, he's living a higher status life. He's got some money that he came into as a result of Southern Cross, and he's unofficially a member of a shadowy police organization in Brazil called the Grupo. He's not especially enthusiastic about going out there and getting into gunfights again, but he gets a call from his lawyer in Canada that forces him into that position. He's facing a lawsuit related to the shooting that cost him his job in Canada as a CBSA officer in the first place, and he has to fly back to Canada and resolve that lawsuit. The way that this happens is the CBSA pulls him back in, hence the title, to retrieve a former colleague of his who's gone missing in Rio de Janeiro. That's the backdrop of the story. Back in Slowly, obviously it plays out against the background of the forthcoming Olympics, and it talks about the complicated mix in Rio between the gangs, in this case the second place gang in Rio called the Terceiro Comando Puro, or the Pure Third Command, where most of the bad guys in the story come from. The vigilante groups, in this case a real group called the Justice League, in which another one of the villains comes from, and the police, not all of whom are the best guys around. I stayed in Rio de Janeiro with my wife for a few days as I was coming up with the ideas for the book, and we stayed in a neighborhood where the Special Police Commandos of Rio, the famous BOPI, are based, and that gave me some insight into the complicated mix of good cops, bad cops, ruthless gangsters, vigilantes who are sometimes tolerated and accepted by the government and sometimes seen as a threat. All of that comes together in this book, and I think it makes for a very compact and tight action story. There's less exposition than there is in Southern Cross. We kind of just jump right into the action, more or less. So if that's your kind of book, then Back in Slowly is the one that you want to pick up. So I hope you'll check out Back in Slowly and the rest of my books, and I'll talk to you next about the third book in the Will Bryant Thrillers series. Thanks for now.